Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down one of comics' greatest villains, Grand Regent Thragg from... Okay, so the Grand Regent Thragg was trained from birth to become one of the strongest Viltrumites in the universe. This was all in order to serve Lord Argall. Argall was seen as the wisest and most powerfulest leader of the Viltrumites ever, and he led them to being the most dominant force in the galaxy. However, after Argall was assassinated by Thaedus, the heirs to his throne were lost, and the Viltrumites descended into a civil war known as the Purge. In that, they brutally murdered each other for hundreds and hundreds of years, until only the strongest of their people were left. This included Thragg, who became the new Grand Regent of the Viltrumites. Thragg was inherently ruthless and did it all in the name of making the Viltrumites strive. He even kept Lord Argall's skull as a reminder of how easily the Viltrumites could fall, and pushed forth with a mission to rule the universe. They enslaved countless planets and killed all that opposed them. Now luckily, the Viltrumites were then hit with a scourge virus which killed 99.9% of their population. Sound like a fucking antibacteria advert there. In order to maintain the illusion of their hold on the galaxy though, Thragg covered up this mass extinction and sent what remained to conquer new worlds and breed with the population, basically banging their way through the galaxy. We get a version of this story in Invincible issue 66 from Nolan, which we saw adapted into episode 2. However, this version of the Viltrumite history is told by Thragg himself in Invincible 102. It's also worth mentioning that Thragg ruled over the Viltrumites for thousands of years, meaning he's way older than Omni-Man, who is like 2,000 years old. Now while he's an absolute psychopath, like the greatest villains of all, Thragg wholeheartedly believes he's doing the right thing. He sees the Viltrumites' conquest as the only way to maintain their history and culture. In his mind, everything he's doing will one day return planet Viltrum as the triumphant force they were under Lord Argall. Now while Nolan gives us a bullshit version of this history in Invincible 11, it's not until Invincible returns that we actually get introduced to the Viltrumite leader. That happens when Conquest comes grovelling at his feet for his failure to kill Mark in Invincible issue 65. Which we of course got adapted in episode 2. We next see Thragg in Invincible issue 74, where he and the Viltrumites attack Telescara and officially begin the Viltrumite War. After getting their asses handed to them by Mark, Nolan, Oliver and the Coalition, Thragg and the Viltrumites take the war into space in Invincible 75. It's here why Thragg proves he's the best of the best of the best of the best Viltrumites, because he basically punches Oliver's face off and rips Thaedus' head off his body. This all happens after he, Mark and Nolan fly themselves through planet Viltrum and destroy it once and for all. Which I have to say is one of the coolest series of splash pages I think I've ever seen in a comic. That takes us to Invincible issue 76 though, where Thragg then turns his attention to Mark and Nolan and he just utterly embarrasses them. He gives Nolan the good old Viltrumite gut punch and nearly crushes Mark's head before ultimately letting them live, because they are still Viltrumites and the Empire needs everyone they can get. Which, yeah, Art really needs to make Mark a helmet or something, because the dude is always getting his head smashed like the like button. Doing that is one of the best ways to support the channel, along with our brand new Invincible inspired shirts that we've just launched below. We have this one inspired by Battle Beast, the one by the omni-man symbol, and one of my favourite shirts we've ever done in our Dinosaurus one as well. There's lots of massive discounts on the store, and it'll help you look as good as Mark and Nolan do after they recover from a brutal ass whooping, which is still pretty terrible. But the t-shirts are good. But yeah, Mark then comes to the grim realization that with the planet Viltrum gone, the Empire's next stop is Earth. Ooh. The characters quickly dart there, but are met by Thragg, who offers them a truce. In exchange for not attacking the planet, they'll allow the Viltrumites to remain on Earth. This will let them assimilate amongst the humans and rebuild their ranks on the promise that they will not interfere with human events. If not, it's open season on Earth and the Viltrumites will continue their war with the Coalition there. Realizing there's not really an option here, Mark reluctantly agrees and the Viltrumites successfully take over Earth. In secret. With the Viltrumite War over though, and the Viltrumites making their new home on Earth, Alan becomes the leader of the Coalition and devises a drastic plan to end the Viltrumites once and for all. Developing a new stronger strain of the Scourge virus, Alan and Oliver head to Earth to release it. This all goes down in Invincible issue 88, where it seems like they're going to wipe the Viltrumites out once and for all. However, there is just one tiny little problem. The new strain of the virus would likely kill every human as well, and Mark fights off against Alan and Oliver in order to stop them. It's a very heated battle, and a big surprise comes when Mark's saved by Thragg. Seeing their mutual interest in not having the virus spread, they're put into another standoff against Alan. Thragg then offers Alan basically the same deal he gave to Nolan and Mark, but they're interrupted by the Guardians of the Globe. They screw the whole thing up, and in the chaos, Mark is infected with the new strain of Scourge virus. Mark is then taken in by Thragg and put into quarantine on the Viltrumite ship in order to try and save him from the effects of it. However, we see Thragg has some ulterior motives than just saving a fellow Viltrumite. In Invincible 89, one of his scientists discovers Mark shares the DNA of Lord Argall. Thragg then crushes him into paste in order to keep the secret. Thragg then once again shows his true colours and tries to kill Mark while he's recovering, but he's stopped by Dinosaurus. However, Thragg rips his jaw in half and escapes. We then jump ahead to Invincible 100, where Thragg learns how the other Viltrumites have started to love living on Earth. They've developed real relationships with their partners and humans in general, and basically kind of gone on the same character path as Nolan. This enrages Thragg though, who sees them as nothing more than cattle and orders them to get their shit together. Seeing them as following the same path as Nolan, Thragg sets out to get his revenge and he attacks Omni-Man directly. However, instead of just killing him, Thragg reveals the truth behind his rise to power. Now, Viltrumites were supposed to find Argall's true heir. However, after the Civil War, Thragg basically just purposely stopped looking because he viewed himself as being the most deserving of rule. Turns out that Mark had the blood of Lord Argall, and Thragg realised that Nolan was the lost heir and had to kill him to prevent any question of his leadership. As Thragg beats the brakes off of Nolan, he's then stopped by General Craig and the Viltrumites rebel against their leader. Finally, they've learned empathy and love from their time on Earth and now truly understand why Nolan betrayed their people. They then defeat Thragg and take Nolan as their new emperor in Invincible 102. With Thragg's dictatorship of the Viltrumites over, Emperor Nolan decides to show him and his people a new path forward, and he lets Thragg live. He exiles him far away from Earth and Coalition space in general to make a life for himself somewhere in the cold darkness of the galaxy in Invincible issue 105. Which I do think the show will somewhat mirror Omni-Man's journey in season 2 in that fantastic montage where he just flies through space all alone. However, Thragg being Thragg, this isn't the end for the mustachio psycho. He returns in Invincible 115. Their battle beast finds him on Thraxa, and it turns out he's been mass breeding with the women to create an army of Viltrumite/Thraxan babies. However, Battle Beast interrupts Thragg's breeding camp, and the two of them just fight for the next 5 issues. And when I say that, I mean they just non-stop brutally beat the shit out of each other. Battle Beast even rips out his own guts after Thragg is injured by a Ragnar, and this is so he has no advantage in their fight, which is fucking brutal. Now, I know I said earlier that Mark and Nolan flying through the planet was like the best panel ever, but I lied. Thragg versus Battle Beast is the best fight and panel in comic book history. I love how they just keep cutting to Battle Beast and Thragg brutally killing each other throughout the comic while the story goes on without them. And it just gets more and more violent. Battle Beast loves every moment of it though, and Thragg just constantly comments on how insane he is. Now, there's no telling exactly how long they were fighting for, but Battle Beast has finally found a worthy opponent in Thragg, and in this he meets his death. Thragg crushes his heart and then collapses from exhaustion. It's over though, and yeah, we will be talking more about Battle Beast in an upcoming video centered around the character, so if you want to learn more about that, make sure you're subscribed. Now, their battle completely destroyed Thraxa, and Thragg takes his baby army and Thraxan heroine on the run to plan his ultimate revenge in Invincible issue 120. Thragg also takes Battle Beast's skin as a trophy and wears it as a sort of cape, which is a bit disrespectful to our boy Thragg, but also quite respectful because he's like, look, this is my greatest opponent ever. Also, looking back, it's just absolutely crazy how Kirkman spaced this out in the comics. You know, with the book coming out monthly, it was like nearly a 5-month event for readers at the time. And yeah, I cannot imagine just going through this over the space of 5 months. I'm even hoping that like season 5 or something, they just make the fight the entire season and spread it out that way, or I'll be very disappointed. Anyway, fast forwarding through a bunch of insane stuff for Invincible, we catch it with Thragg in Invincible issue 127. There his child army has grown into little psychos, much like how Oliver was. At this point, Oliver is now actually working for Thragg to help him get his revenge on Mark and bring the Viltrumites as well as the Thraxans back. But don't worry, we do later learn that Oliver was actually undercover for Alan and the Coalition, but it was still a very shocking moment in the comics. With his Thraxan children, Thragg then starts taking over planets, and he launches an attack on the Coalition of Planets in issue 129. He then comes for Mark and Eve in Invincible 131. This is alongside his 2 strongest child soldiers, Ursel and Onan. And Onan, Oliver got lucky when Debbie named him. Thragg then attacks the power couple and rips Mark in half. Eve also gets her face punched in by Thragg's daughter, and Thragg also kills Oliver with a Viltrumite gut punch. Rest in peace, my boy, which I did get very upset about when reading. However, Eve's Omega powers once more kick in, and she revives both herself and Mark with fresh bodies. This is similar to how she came back to life after being killed by Conquest, because Eve is basically like an invincibility cheat code. No pun intended there. Anyway, back to Thragg. He then sets off on a full war with the Coalition with his new army. Here he goes out conquering planets and decimating the Coalition's forces. This continues until Invincible issue 138, where the war reaches its climax. Thragg takes on the Coalition with his child army, and he fights not only them, but also the Viltrumites led by Nolan. He also has a group of Ragnar on leashes that he just starts whipping around, and they start ripping the fuck out of the Viltrumites, which was very gnarly. This is just an all-out brutal space war that comes to a halt when Thragg rips Nolan in half. This ends up killing him, which leads to the final showdown between Invincible and Thragg. Now, as Thragg and Mark battle to the death, Thragg starts using his Thraxan children as weapons. He begins just tossing them into Mark to explode on impact, even to the point he grabs their severed limbs to beat the crap out of him. He says that he can make an endless supply of them and that the children are disposable. However, seeing all of their brothers and sisters getting brutally murdered, Thragg's daughter Ursula realizes that Thragg has abandoned them to die and convinces her siblings to stand down and surrender. Mark then flies Thragg into a nearby sun. This brings us to Invincible issue 140, where Mark and Thragg have one of the coolest and most epic fights in comic history on the surface of the sun. Yes, the fucking sun. The entire issue as well is just them fighting. Here, as their skin begins to melt from the intense heat, Thragg admits that this has all been for petty revenge. However, this is the moment that Mark realizes what he's truly fighting for, and that the love and compassion the Viltrumites have learned on Earth gives their people something to truly fight for. This whole time, Thragg's been holding them back by only valuing his strength and leaving no room for compassion and love, which is why he will never truly win. Even characters like Conquest, they kind of fleshed this out a bit more in the show and had him giving that whole speech about how he feels so lonely. And it's clear that a lot of Viltrumites probably feel the same way, especially with how things turn out. But as the two continue to fight, their skin completely melts off. Mark's point is proven for him though when Robot sends his armor to provide Invincible some relief. This gives him the upper hand against the fleshless Thragg, and he beats the shit out of him until the armor completely melts off. He then delivers the final blow by ripping his throat out with his teeth. While this happens, Mark thinks to himself that the Viltrumites can love, be loved, and also spread peace. Mark wishes that he could be alive to see this happen, but he accepts his death as Thragg's body falls further into the sun. However, Mark is saved by Alan, further showing how the genuine relationships that Mark's built with others are what makes him a true hero. Like, you know Ursula and those other bug kids, they're not coming to save Thragg, but people will come and save Mark. This is why Mark was able to beat him though, even though he was the strongest of the Viltrumites. Mark had friends, people that loved him, and people that would die for him, which is something that Thragg just didn't really have. This is also why Mark didn't end up becoming like the other Invincibles in the multiverse, as they all turned their back on their family and friends in one way or another. And in the end, they lost because of this. But yeah, that's the greatest thing that we can learn from the ending, and that brings us to the end of Regent Thragg's story, in the most brutal and epic way possible. Being the overarching villain of the Invincible universe, though, this final fight between Thragg and Invincible is the moment that Mark's journey also somewhat comes to a close. There are bits beyond that, but this is pretty much the main ending, and having struggled with his own sense of morality and being a hero throughout the entire series, it's at this moment that Mark discovers that his compassion, empathy are his true strength. It's truly one of the best endings to a comic I think I've ever read, and that brings Invincible's journey full circle with the most insane fight you could ever imagine. Now again, while this isn't the true end of the series, which happens 4 issues later, this is the moment where Mark fully steps into his role as the greatest superhero in the universe and proves that he's truly... Also, I can't wait to see what they do with Thragg in the show as well. The series has added so much emotional depth to the characters, and I think with Lee Pace behind him, they can do an incredible amount. As always though, I'd love to hear your thoughts below, and is Thragg one of the all-time greatest villains in comics? Also, let us know who from the Invincible universe you'd like to see us do a deep dive on, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of our Invincible Season 4 breakdowns. If you want to follow us on Instagram as well and keep up to date with what we're doing, then make sure you check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos like this every single week, and if you click the join button you get at least one breakdown a week before everyone else. We are working on For Your Eyes Only. If you're a Bond fan, that will be out very soon, but in the meantime I just had to drop this video and kind of talk about the character. If not though, then what the bloody hell is wrong with you? It's only 99 cents, mate. What? But yeah, thanks for all your support anyway. I do really appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Now if you want something else to watch, you've got a breakdown on screen right now, so yeah, head over there and have a good one, mate. If not though, thank you for sticking through this video. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.